What's up, everyone? It's time for the first episode of the Switch It Up podcast. Thanks for tuning in. This is the show where we try to distract you from your daily life and switch up how you spend some of your free time. In today's episode, we'll be talking Netflix movies and show recommendations. We get into a couple heated sports debates where we'd love to hear your take, and we give our thoughts on where the Leafs stand going into the playoffs. Without further ado, thanks for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy the first episode.
First thing we want to talk about is break down some shows and movies that you may have seen or want to see and give your take on it. What do you got, buddy?
Honestly, getting into like TV shows. I recently started the show. There's only one season, but the second season actually confirmed to come out very soon. But it's Into the Night. It's on Netflix. Moving forward, everything we do recommend will be probably on Netflix or maybe Amazon Prime, depending on what we're watching that week. Yeah, so I'm not trying to get into too much of it because it'll obviously give away a lot of spoilers from the show. But the main thing in it is that basically there's a guy who's from NATO, and he basically gets information that sunlight will kill you. So he gets into an airport in Brussels and he gets on a flight, he hijacks it, and he's like, just fly away and get into the night as much as you can.
God, so, imagine the sun would kill you. That'd be crazy.
Yeah, that'd be nuts. Like waking up and you're just fried. They kept adding on to the story as it went on. They did bring couple more characters in the show later on as well, so it did get very interesting near the end. So I want to see how they play out season 2 because of the way season 1 ended, and that's all I'm going to say.
Nice. So I found myself, like a lot of people on Twitter, I'm finding, got addicted to this F1 show. It's called Drive to Survive. I don't know if any of you may have seen it.
Yeah.
Or are as comically addicted to sports now as I am, because going into this, I did not think that I would be a fan of Formula One. It's obviously, bias aside, Huz and I are very big sports fans for the most part. And so going into it, I'm, big hockey, big football, big basketball, but never really thought of myself as a being into motorsport. Got onto this show, binged all 3 episodes in like maybe 2 days, all 3 seasons rather, in maybe 2 days, and just got comically addicted. And now I'm stuck finding myself waking up at 9 a.m. on a Saturday to watch the F1 races, which is crazy. It's basically just describing the sport.
I don't know how you get into that so much though, man. Like it's Formula One, like it's just racing. Like I don't know. You recommended watching it. I watched the first season. I think I'm on episode 2, season 2, but right. It's just racing at the end of the day. Like,
yeah,
I don't know
here's the thing though. You break it down, you got all these teams. So basically how it works is there's 10 teams and there's 2 drivers per team, 20 drivers. Now, everybody for the most part might think, oh, it's not a big deal. It's not like you can follow it. There's no trades and so on and so forth. But there is drama. Drivers leave the teams at the end of the year. They might go to a different team. And each car is different.
Who was it? I think it was Red Bull's driver, that Ricardo, right?
Yeah,
he's the one that left, right?
Right.
So, so I don't know. It's just
not so much trading, but as of next year, it's similar to a hockey team. They have a salary cap, so they have a spending goal of what you can have per car and a budget for how much you can spend. The last 7
so
or
then
so
there'll be
years,
more competition for each racers, companies, I guess. I don't know. The only thing with me is like sports usually are team sports, like you're in it together. And then with Formula One, each company or whatever you want to call it, each team, I'd say, gets 2 drivers.
Sure.
And then if you look at talking about Ricardo again with Max, whatever his last name is,
Verstappen,
nice. They're just crashing into each other and just destroying it for their team.
That's the thing, but that's sort of the thing. There's 2 championships, right? There's the team championship, and then there's the world champion driver. And I feel like everybody in every sport wants to be the world champion. Sport,
right? I totally do get that. But if you look at hockey, like Team Canada wise, right? They all want to win it together. Sure. They're winning it as a team. So if Red Bull wins the world championship, is it individual or is it as Red Bull?
So there's a constructors championship, which is the team. So the top 10 finishers of every race score points for the team. Right. So if Max scores first, he gets 26 points. And if his teammate scores second, he gets 18 points. So the idea
Okay.
being, if you get a top 10 finish, you score
Yeah.
points for your team, but you also get those same points for that finish for yourself, for the driver.
Okay.
So
And then
if you
whoever
finish
finished with the most
1-2,
points, got it. I don't know. At the end of the day, I still want to do well as a team, shake and bake.
yeah, I know
But
what you mean.
yeah,
Yeah, that's the thing though.
that's
It's
fair.
the problem. The one big difference before we move on to our next segment is in F1, which I urge people to watch this show, is that unlike every other sport where money is regulated,
Right.
in Formula One, there is no money that's regulated. So teams like Mercedes and Ferrari tend to be constantly winning, which some people view as a bad thing, but I actually view that as there's a top tier where there's like
Yeah.
Mercedes and Ferrari, and I mean right now it's Mercedes and Red Bull. And then
Right.
there's a mid tier, which allows you as a fan of the sport to cheer for your sector of team and cheer for them to improve. It's kind of like having the AHL and the NHL in one like league, but they're
One
all
league,
competing
yeah.
under the same, and you get to see how they advance in real time, which I
See,
thought.
I do agree with you there. The only thing is that watching the show,
Right.
because we're still talking about the show, obviously, in the sport. What I didn't like or was just really confused about was guys celebrating finishing 7th or 8th or even like
Right.
5th at most. I'm like, man, you didn't win the race. Like, why are you
I
celebrating?
know, but that's the thing is because
Like,
they're
there's
competing
no
for
podium
money.
finish either. Like, what's going
I
on
know.
here? Like,
I know.
why are you celebrating? Like, you didn't.
Exactly.
You finished last in my books. Like, I don't know, you didn't win the race. Simple as that. But I
Yeah, that's
guess
the
if you
thing.
are talking about where you start off in the next race, but that's qualifiers. I'm not even talking about qualifiers. I'm talking about the final race itself.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah,
if
it's
that
all about
does,
money.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair. Like I did remember seeing that the higher you finish, the more money your team makes.
Exactly.
But I guess if that's supposed to change next year, then that'll change.
Yeah, it's more along the lines of if you're finishing 5th, you're in the middle of the pack. So you're competing against the guys who are finishing 3rd, 4th, 5th versus
Right. Whereas
because
in
we all
first is
know
like
Mercedes
Lewis
and Red Bull are going to finish 1, 2.
Yeah.
So by virtue of that, your best goal is as a team to maybe finish 5th in a race, get enough.
I don't know,
points
but
so
at that point, like you've already given up.
first.
You
Yeah,
know,
but
like
that's
if you go into a
constantly going
race,
to advance.
I don't
Your
know, man.
goal
Like
is to improve the car.
Yeah, but if you go into a race and you've already said, okay, Lewis Hamilton's finishing first this race, and then second is Max Verstappen, then you've already lost before the race even started. I don't know if you can.
But this is the drama behind it all: is that Lewis can crash at any time. Max might finish first on pole. Lewis crashes. It's anybody's race, and then they build up enough points and can steal it. It's
I
guess
that's a fair point.
And their teammates as well. You got Mercedes teammates and
Red
Bull's
teammates, for sure.
So
yeah, but I mean, no one's as good as Lewis Hamilton right now. So
listen, he is like, I would equate watching him in F1 right now to watching Michael Jordan play basketball, or I guess in our case, LeBron James. It's an interesting time to watch the sport and get into it. So last night I watched this absolutely insane documentary that I wanted to share. So it's called Free Solo. I don't know if you've ever seen this documentary before.
No, so right now.
It is the most incredible thing I've ever watched. I've never watched something where my hands and feet did not stop sweating the entire time I was watching.
I think I did hear about it on Twitter somewhere, someone talking about it. What's it about?
So basically, there's this guy, Alex Honnold, and he is this absolutely crazy character who has dedicated his entire life to being a rock climber. And so you might think to yourself, okay, well, that's, kind of interesting, but like what makes this so incredible? He does these climbs. He's one of the best climbers in the world, but he climbs without ropes. So every time he climbs these 3,000-foot cliffs, he does it where if he makes one mistake, he dies.
Yeah.
They equate it to basically running in the 100 meters at a gold medal rate. And if you don't finish first, you die. It's absolutely insane. And so Alex decides,
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, he's going all over the world doing these climbs, and he's always done it by himself. So he's always done it where there's no camera crew, there's no, anything around him.
So then has he done
this
it?
Time, yeah, well, that's the thing, right? This is the thing. So he shows obviously, clips of himself, and he's become, world renowned at this. But this one task is El Capitan, which is in one of the national parks in the States. And it's the biggest mountain or the biggest climbing mecca in the world. And nobody has ever free soloed El Cap. So no one has ever done it because it's insane. 5 people have died with ropes, let alone doing it by with no ropes. So he gets this camera crew and he goes on, and the documentary is explaining how he tries to climb this thing without giving away any spoilers, without ropes and just freehand. It is a 3,000-foot cliff, and it is the most harrowing thing I've ever watched. It is absolutely insane. So I highly recommend that as a must-watch for me.
Okay, so what's the name again?
What's your suggestion? It's called Free Solo.
Free
you can
Solo.
buy it on you can buy it on YouTube. It's also on, I believe, Amazon Prime. So if you want to give that a shot.
It's not on Netflix, but it's on Amazon Prime.
It's not on
gotcha.
Netflix, it's on Amazon Prime.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm more a movie watcher. I don't really like watching too many documentaries.
Right.
I did start them though when quarantine first started, when we were in first lockdown. I think I was the first couple I watched were like the Aaron Hernandez and then T. Epstein, all those documentaries. And then the Magnotta one as well, where he started killing off cast to begin with. That was brutal. But I'll stick to Netflix and movies. I was recently asked to watch this from Willie, our friend, and it's called Only the Brave. And it's similar. It's interesting why he recommended it, because he's getting into firefighting wildlife fires into himself as well, and that's what the movie's really about. Someone living out west in the bushes, fighting fires for a living, saving communities and houses and cities from burning down. So I know we had a big issue about it earlier in the year, I believe, or late last year, from like gender reveals creating forest fires, right? So it's interesting to see because someone's got to do it. It's a job where not many people will jump into right away, but it's something that has to be done, and there are obviously people doing it out there. So paying tribute to our heroes out there saving communities out in the West.
So is it just like these guys are clearing up fires from like insane people who are setting them up in insane reasons, or is it just following?
It's just all wildlife fires that they're basically showing how they work around these fires, how to maintain them, and then shut them down.
Oh, cool. Okay.
But it's a whole storyline though of a few characters. I think Miles Turner, that's the guy who's in it. It's one of his first like serious role movies, and then I did recently also read that he's coming back. He took a lot of time off for movies, and he's coming back with Top Gun. I think he's with Tom Cruise in that movie, I believe. So that will be his like second, like I don't know, like serious movie, I'd say, because he's usually like the comedy guy who's just a college student, dropout, stuff like that. That's usually the roles he would play, but in this movie he actually did a great job with all the other characters obviously as well. So it was a great movie that was written very well. It is a sad ending though. I'm not going to get into too much into it, but I definitely do recommend watching it. Watch it with someone. I don't know,
maybe have the tissues handy if you're watching it.
Yeah, I would say definitely for the end, definitely have the tissues handy, and that's all I'm going to say about it. But it is a great watch. I do recommend watching it. It's on Netflix. Once again, it's called Only the Brave.
Right, so we got Free Solo and Only the Brave. I got one more. So I'm a closet rom-com fan, as you probably know, but now I guess not so closeted. So a big rom-com guy, and I watched one called Palm Springs. And
that is
And it's
I actually watched it on my flight to Pakistan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I watched it on my flight. Etihad Airways shout out, but yeah, like I remember watching it on the flight there. Not a sponsor, no, not a sponsor.
So it's an Andy Samberg written movie, and it's basically about how it's a rom-com about how he wakes up trapped in this time loop, and essentially he unknowingly drags this girl into this time loop with him, and they have to relive the same wedding over and over and over again. And it's just so much fun. I find recently I haven't really been in love with any movie I've watched where like the whole goal of movies, at least to me, is to like take you out of where you're at currently and just like throw you into the movie. I haven't found one of those in a really long time. But
see, that's what Only the Brave was like, because I was like, like imagining myself in their shoes, like it'd be crazy.
Yeah,
You
you'd
know,
be
like
like
I'm just
out of
at
your
home right
mind.
now, and then if I was out there, it'd be a whole different world. So that's why I'm recommending that, because it's somewhere similar to what you just said right there. But and then
Right.
also Palm Springs, it's a great movie as well, because now you're imagining yourself in his situation, like holy shit, you know, if this happens with me, like it'd be crazy. Like what would I do in
Yeah.
that situation, right? So it is a good
Exactly. It's
movie.
just like, plus I think it's a very feel good film, which I feel like a lot of the time, you throw something on, you don't know what to watch, and sometimes you're like, oh well, it's good, but I gotta like force myself to stay away from my phone. But with this one, you're in it and you don't want to look away because you want to know what happens next. And I think it's just an
Yeah.
overall a really solid film.
Is it
So
on
highly
Netflix?
recommend that one. That's another Amazon Prime one actually.
Hold on. I think you might be right.
Yeah, I think it's an Amazon Prime original. Or they bought the rights. I remember there was a
Yeah,
bidding
no,
war
it's not.
for it,
It's
and
not on.
Amazon Prime got the rights.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's not on Netflix here.
Well, the next thing I wanted to talk about here was we got a couple sports debates, which we'd love to know your opinions on. We're
That's
both
fun.
very much Leaf fans, as you can tell from Huzz's
Yeah.
background over there.
Oh yeah, big Leafs
But
guy.
here's my debate, right? So I'm talking the other day with one of my buddies, and we're debating the Crosby Ovechkin debate, right? Who's better and why?
Okay, it's
And
Crosby.
here, yeah, it's not. It's
Like,
Ovechkin. But here's
no, it's
my
not. Like your argument with that. Okay, I'll cut you off because I know where this
go
is
ahead, go
going.
ahead.
Your argument is like, okay, well, if you look at points, Ovechkin has more points.
No, see, he
That's
does,
literally
but
your
that's not my
argument.
point.
That
He does, but that's not my point. My point is this, and I would love your take on it, and I would love anybody listening to DM us about it.
Okay.
At Switch It Up Podcast on Instagram, but humble plug. But here's the thing. Here's my take on it, right? Is in your opinion, I think you might actually agree with me on this. I don't know if you will or will
Probably not. We'll
so
hear it out.
Ovechkin is a much rarer talent than Crosby. And here's why.
In terms of goal
right?
scoring, yes, I do agree.
Yeah, but I think just in terms of we'll never see another Ovechkin in our lifetime. Whereas I think every 10 years you see another Crosby. Whether it be, Mario Lemieux was retired and Crosby came into the league. Mario is obviously viewed as the guy who was last as good as a guy like Crosby, right?
Okay,
so you had
yeah.
Mario Lemieux till 2001. Then you had Crosby when he got drafted. Then Lemieux comes out of retirement, plays 1 year with him, and then Crosby's in the league, right? So you got Crosby.
Yeah,
then,
no, that's fair.
Now Crosby's career is winding down. You got McDavid, and then now we hear about this guy Connor Bedard coming up. He's supposed to be just as good. He's electric. Blah 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 blah.
Okay.
Right? Ovechkin is breaking records, right? In terms of goal scoring that have been set for 40 years. Obviously, Gretzky being his goal record being the biggest one that Ovechkin has to hunt down here if he continues.
He's really close, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if he'll get it. I hope he does. But it's just that not only is Ovechkin doing this, but there's never been a goal scorer like him. And he's doing it in an era where it's obviously far harder to score goals. And nobody's done it. And if other people were going to do it, it's just he's a far rarer talent than a Crosby.
Buddy, have you not seen Matthews this year?
Yeah, sure. But
I'm just saying, like,
do what Ovechkin's doing.
I honestly, like, I don't know, the two guys that I see scoring at Ovi's pace right now probably would be, like, if Pastrnak was healthy all year, he'd be up there with Matthews right now.
Right, but I think that the difference isn't that Ovechkin is a 50 goal or even a 60 goal guy. It's the fact that he's done it for 9 consecutive years.
It's consistency with him, right? 100%.
It's nuts.
If Stamkos was healthy, he'd be up there too. That's my
I think if Stamkos had stayed healthy, but that's the thing. It's like that's what makes him so great is that he's not gotten injured. He's scored this consistent.
Well, if you're talking about not getting injured and stuff, look at Patty Marleau.
Oh well, there you
right?
go.
Like,
yeah.
or if you look at the greatest player in Leafs history and into the NHL, Phil Kessel, like look at his streak that he's going on, right? The guy plays every game. So I don't know, like talking about like Crosby and Ovechkin in general, like they've both played over 1,000 games, right? Ovi's closing in on 1,200. He's about 4 games away right now, and then Crosby's at 1,037, right? Crosby's ahead in points by 3 points.
Yeah, I think.
Right. So like point per game player wise, like if Crosby was healthy, he didn't miss a year and a half because of a concussion. There was no, I guess Ovechkin was hurt by the lockout, but I'm sure Crosby was at the same time as well. They both were. Right. So take that out of the equation because it equals out, I guess. But then if you take away the injury time that Crosby had, obviously the games would be a lot more even at that point. but the
Yeah.
points would be night and day difference. I think he is a generational talent scoring wise, goal scoring wise. So if you have that guy on your team, you're going to feed him the puck. Look at it right now with the Leafs. Matthews has 39 goals. Who's second? Marner with like 18.
Yeah.
Maybe. Like I'll double check right now, but I think he has like 18 goals on the year and no power play goals for the guy. Like it's ridiculous to think that way. But yeah, Marner has 18, Tavares has 17, and then you have Matthews who has 21 more goals than
I think the thing is too, one of the things you got to do with that is you got to kind of put this season over to the side because of the Canadian division, because the division.
I don't know. They're all NHL players. It's not. I wouldn't say it's easier. They're still in the NHL.
I think the reason I would say it's easier is because you're playing the same team 10 times. So obviously versus.
But that goes for all the other divisions as well, right?
Like if you look at a whole, the season you should probably take it and put it to the side because these types of scoring events aren't going to happen.
I don't know. Like if you look at the East Division, you got Crosby and Ovechkin in it. Why aren't they up there? You know, in terms of scoring.
They're obviously older now. And Ovechkin's had some injury problems.
Well, then there's your argument with, like, yeah. So,
Yeah, Crosby's never been injured, eh?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just talking about Ovechkin in general. But then if you look at the West as well, like McKinnon finally, coming back from his injury, he's finally picking up his space. But then you can say, like, it's just an easy division he's playing in as well. And then, I don't know, the Central is looking like the toughest division for some reason. They have great teams from 1 to 3 with Carolina, Florida, and Tampa. So,
right.
I don't know. I think the winner coming out of that division will probably give whoever wins the cup, if they don't win it, the hardest competition out there. We'll see how that plays out. But in terms of Crosby and Ovechkin coming back to them, if you were to start a franchise in 2005 or 2006, I would still take Crosby over Ovechkin. Because
even
Crosby,
if you knew about the injuries, if you knew he was going to get those concussions, you'd still take him.
I still would, because I would want him in my dressing room. Like I think that in terms of a team sport, not an individual part, but a team sport, Crosby makes guys around him a lot better. Like this year, look at Brian Rust, right? The guys like torching, or even Jake Gensel last year.
Yeah, everybody the kid's ever played with has been incredible. Crosby
my biggest example would be Chris Kunitz. Like the guy made, 100%. Although he has won 4 cups, we'll give him that. But he did make Team Canada where he really didn't belong, other than because of Crosby.
Yeah, Kunitz is a walking Stanley Cup. The guy's incredible.
I mean, well, look at Zach Boshin, buddy, 1 for 1. So he never lost in the playoffs. So we could use him for sure. But yeah, coming back to like Crosby and Chris Kunitz, like that's the guy I'd want on my team. Like if you look at McDavid, as good as he is, he's not Crosby in terms of making others great around him.
I don't know about that. That's another heated debate there, buddy.
Well, look at it. Like he doesn't make guys around him good.
Of course he does. He's playing.
No, he doesn't.
Here's my argument, right? They're playing with. Okay, McDavid has his entire career in Edmonton being around a general manager that has absolutely butchered every other line that he's ever played with, right?
Yeah.
So by virtue of that, he has still has more points than Crosby through 400 games in their career.
I'm not talking about skill. I know. Well, no, they're like neck and neck with the games played and the points that they are.
400. I think he has, as of last night or 2 nights ago, I believe he has 3 more points than Crosby through 400 games.
That's what I'm saying. Like they're like neck and neck. They're like right there.
It's nuts.
But my argument is not that. I know McDavid is better than Crosby right now.
Yeah, right now,
right? Sure. He's the best player in the league. I think he will be the best player in the league for the coming decade. I want to say, because he's only 24. He's our age. He's only 24. So my argument is that McDavid doesn't make other players around him good. Whereas in Crosby he's always, and I'll tell you why. Like he has 93 points on the season. Second on that team is Draisaitl. They weren't playing on the same line for most of the year. They were just recently put together. He's at 75. Draisaitl scored twice last night. McDavid assisted on both goals.
Right now,
and then they both had,
but they weren't before.
Yeah, and they both had 4 points each the night before. I think maybe Draisaitl might have had 5. But then you look at their third guy, and he's at 44, which is Tyson Barrie, which hurts to say, but like he's got most of his points on the power play.
Yeah, and that's I think like for the argument that can be made with this is you have to give McDavid some credit because he wouldn't be putting up the assist numbers he is if he wasn't making guys better, or if he wasn't contributing passing the puck and making plays. I think what Crosby does is Crosby makes his teammates, he spreads the puck around more than McDavid does.
Yeah.
But I think that is true because Crosby was given far more talented guys to play with than McDavid was. Like McDavid
I wouldn't
is
know
playing
because I
with
mean,
a guy
like
Josh Archibald, and he's not going to be Josh Archibald's not going to score 30 goals on Crosby's line like a Chris Kunitz would. Like Josh Archibald is a guy who's he's an AHL player playing on a second line in the NHL because
but
they
at
got
the same
nobody
time,
else.
like, you know, we've never seen that.
Sorry, Josh.
Right? Like, I mean, I think Josh Archibald would put up better numbers because he's only at 13 points this year.
Right.
I think he puts up more than 13 points on a line with Crosby playing 47 games this year.
Well, it's an interesting debate. It's an interesting debate.
The way, like, I don't know. I think it's just the coaches on Edmonton. Like, I agree with them when they have Connor and Draisaitl separated, just like how Pittsburgh had McDavid and not McDavid, Crosby and Malkin separated, right?
Right.
And then on the power play, having them together, so then they feed off each other on the power play with one man down.
This is one of the things that gets me. There's no question that Crosby is undoubtedly a far more, one of the top 5 players of all time. You can make the argument he's an incredible player, but there is something to do with luck to where he was drafted and when. Because when the Penguins won the draft lottery and they got Crosby, they then went and got Malkin the following year and Marc-Andre Fleury the year after that. So they set themselves up in a way that almost
I think it was the other way around. I think they got Fleury, Malkin, and then Crosby.
Right.
So
but anyway, in one of those 3 orders, they got this incredible franchise-defining draft year after year after year, which set Crosby up to win Stanley Cups and do all this because McDavid, for as great as and a generational talent he is, you can make the argument that if he had the same guys Crosby had, because I would argue Leon is his Malkin. They don't have any goaltending.
He had Taylor Hall's first year though.
McDavid? Yeah, but
right. If you look at Edmonton,
they had him 1 year. He had him 1 year in his rookie year, which McDavid was still a point a game player. And you can argue that Taylor Hall is great. I would say Taylor Hall is a middling second line. Maybe you can make the case. I would say he's a second line player on a Stanley Cup winning team. And maybe he's not, but I would say he's
he won the Hart like 3 years ago.
Yeah, but that's 3 years ago, man.
I know, but
look at him.
I don't know. Like, Buffalo, like, just the whole team has been garbage all season. Like, look at Eichel.
Yeah,
like they both had to combine 3 goals halfway into the season. And
since they
you can make the same
Kluger,
argument. Like, is Eichel a second line
true,
center? Right? Like, is Eichel a second line center? No way.
No, I just think my point, without going too deep into this, is that I think that if McDavid was given the same luxury of goaltending and depth as Crosby was when he came into the league. Now, obviously, there were some years where Crosby wasn't great, or rather, the team wasn't great around him.
Right.
But if you give McDavid, the Marc-Andre Fleury at the back end, a few of the defensemen like a Sergei Gonchar or some of the guys that Pittsburgh had back in the Stanley Cup years.
Well, they traded Hall for Larson 1-for-1.
Right.
That didn't help.
That's the thing that's my point is the management in Edmonton has been terrible.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying as well.
Versus a Jimmy Rutherford in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. But still, at the end of the day, like, I would for sure, if I were to choose one of the 2 players, I'm taking McDavid without even blinking an eye. But I still do think Crosby is that type of guy that would make his teammates better. Whether if they're on his line or not, they're still doing a lot better as a team with Crosby in the room versus with McDavid. And that does go because there is a big age. There's a 10-year difference between the 2, right? So I guess it comes with maturity as well. Maybe like 5 years from now, we'll see McDavid take that leap into his game as well, on top of what he's already done so far, where then he really separates himself from Crosby in each aspect of the game. So then that's when it's like, okay, yeah, McDavid is really, the best playmaker, goal scorer, or point getter, whatever you want to call it, player out there. So then I guess I would still give him a couple more years for it to mature, but I don't know. Like, I still would say that Crosby does make the guys around him or the room a lot better than how McDavid has so far.
I'd love to hear the take from other people on this one.
No,
if you
100%.
guys want to give us your take on Instagram there at Switch It Up Podcast, you can feel free to DM us, and we'd love to hear your takes. I want to know, potentially, do you guys feel like who's a rare talent? Is Crosby a rare talent? Is Ovechkin a rare talent? That's what I'd like figured out. And then, would you take a Sidney Crosby at 18 or a Connor McDavid at 18, and tell us why? And then the last debate I wanted to have with you here, and I guess just going off McDavid, is here's my thoughts on Connor. Is if I think personally, if you take McDavid and you drop him in any game that's ever been played in the history of hockey, he's the best player on the ice. What's your thought process there?
Like in any era?
Any era, you
Oh, I
drop him
agree
on the ice,
100%.
he's the best player. You
I
agree he's the
agree.
best player?
I agree
Well, then,
100%.
So,
He's
but
the
you'd still
fastest
take
player.
Crosby at 18 over McDavid.
No, I'm taking McDavid at 18.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, no, that's like because the previous thing we were talking about Crosby and Ovechkin.
Right.
Between the two, I'm taking Crosby 100%. But if it's between
Right.
McDavid and Crosby, I'm taking McDavid 100%. If
Because you
McDavid
think
puts
his
on,
development to grow is bigger than he could
he has,
potentially
yeah,
eclipse
well,
Crosby.
he's only 24 and Crosby's 34, right? Which is
Right.
crazy to think Crosby's 34, right?
Yeah.
Like he's not the kid anymore. So there's a new kid on the block. I definitely do think that if McDavid was to put more muscle on, he's got everything going for him. If he can start hitting guys as well. I don't know if you watched the game yesterday, but he threw a couple
He's
big hits
become
here
more
and there.
physical. He's thrown the elbow in
Yeah, no,
Montreal.
yesterday he was
He's
all
getting...
over JT Miller, all over the ice.
Sure.
And then, if he kind of implements that game into his, or that aspect into his game, he'll be a completely different player, man. Like he'll still have his goal scoring touch. He'll still have the speed that he has. But when you start hitting guys at that speed as well, then people will be a lot more afraid of you. So at 18, I'm taking McDavid 100%. Like especially from like knowing what he's done already. Injury wise,
I think his
they've had
room to
similar
grow is
situations.
just...
Oh yeah, like there's no ceiling for this guy right now. And then injury wise as well, like Crosby missed a year and a half for concussion. McDavid
Right.
missed about half a year to a year with his injury so far with his collarbone, and I think he got concussed one time I think as well, or something that had gone wrong with him, but he's missed time as well so far. So that aspect into it, looking at their career so far, I'm still taking McDavid. Although if it was to think about cups, Crosby does have 3 right now.
Well, that's the thing, man.
Right.
Edmonton's got to get their GM situation and their hockey development team.
Yeah, honestly, I do think
like
they do look a lot scary this year. Mike Smith recently has found his form as well. The last couple of games, he's been lights out. So if he can keep it going, I think this year might be their year. Like, I don't know.
I saw this insane stat that said when McDavid and Draisaitl are on the ice, they're plus like 200 something goals for the year, and when they're off the ice, they're like
it's like minus 155.
Yeah,
I think it's it's like 155. Yeah,
don't know the stats.
I think it was just McDavid, not Draisaitl, because I remember seeing it as well. But it is crazy to think that way. But then again, it's all puck possession when McDavid's on the ice, right? Like there's like when do you see him without the puck? Like he's always with the puck. He's always skating. But
that's the thing is Edmonton just needs more depth, guys, because they've never had it. McDavid's whole career, they've never had the depth. First, they thought they needed defense, and then they thought they needed goaltending, which they still haven't addressed. And now
I believe in Mike Smith, man. I don't know. Like,
I don't. He's
like,
so old.
He is cold, but he's been hot recently. So if he can keep it going,
I mean, old.
he's cold and he's old, I guess. But then I don't know. Like if you look at Winnipeg right now, like they've lost 7 straight in regulation. Right. I think they're playing tonight. I could be wrong, but I think they might be playing.
I believe Winnipeg is. Yeah, I think Winnipeg is the Calgary Flames. I think.
You're right. Yeah, they do play the Flames tonight. Can they make it 8 straight? Who knows? But Calgary is not in a position to lose either. I think if they lose this game, then they're pretty much eliminated from the playoffs because they're projected for 54 points, I think. No, sorry, 59. Yeah. They're projected for 59 points on the season. Montreal and Winnipeg both are at 57 each.
Yeah, and especially with the Leafs bias coming into play here, it matters a lot who we play in the playoffs.
Well, as a Leafs fan, who would you want? Montreal or Winnipeg?
Personally, I would want Montreal, and here's why. It's because I think that Montreal doesn't pose as much of a threat, as bad as Winnipeg has been recently.
Yeah.
And here's
I agree.
My reasoning is I think that Montreal at their best, they can't beat us in a 7-game series. They might, Carey Price, if he turns it on, might be able to steal a game or two, but consistent wise, we will be better. Winnipeg has the talent to beat us if they turn it on. If Hellebuck steals a couple games, if Ehlers comes back and he's firing at the same level he was in the regular season, we're in trouble.
Okay, so here's my take on it.
Right.
The only reason I would take Winnipeg, I genuinely do believe we can beat them. Okay.
Right.
And it will pose as more of a threat. The guys will take it a lot more seriously versus playing Montreal in the playoffs. So then you'll see like another gear shift in Matthews and Marner's play. And then hopefully our goalies, Campbell and Anderson, they kind of have their mojo going as well. So then it'll be a tough series, 100%. But if we come out of that series, then there's no one that's beating us in the North at least.
Yeah, I think
And here's my like the reason why I don't want Montreal is because if you look at the season series, I know people will get mad think talking about the regular season when it comes to playoffs because it does not matter. But I do think that Winnipeg and Edmonton over the season, Edmonton's basically rolled over them for most of the games that I've seen at least.
I
Whereas in
agree.
Montreal has given Edmonton a really tough time all season. So if there's a chance that like Montreal can come through beating Edmonton, I would rather face Winnipeg in the first round and then Montreal in the second round. It'd be just nicer to beat them in the North Finals and then moving on into
I
the
know, but I want to
semis in
see
the
the
league.
matchup so badly in the first.
Well,
But
you'll get to see
it's
it.
an interesting.
You'll
Yeah,
get to see it, right? Like, and it'll be
I hope,
even.
man.
It'll be in a lot more that way as well. But just not having to play Edmonton with the way they're playing right now, I'll take that any day because if Winnipeg does play Edmonton, I'm saying Edmonton 4-1.
I agree.
That's my take on it. Whereas if it's Montreal, Edmonton could take it, but it would be like a 4-3 kind of situation, like Game 7, right? We'll see, but I don't know.
I'd love to hear takes from fellow Leaf fans too. If you guys are, if there's any Leaf fans listening at all, tell us what you think. Who would you rather have in the first round?
Well, who would you not want to play? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Ottawa.
Who would not want to play in the first round?
Ottawa. There's no chance at all.
And then the last thing I want to hear your take, Huz, is which is interesting, is breaking news right now. The New York Rangers have fired their president and their general manager both for issuing that statement last night.
Really?
So they fired both of them and said, I do not believe they had anything to do with the statement. However, Elliot Friedman says that it was driven by management of the Rangers to fire both the president and the general manager for issuing the statement.
That's crazy. You're calling out the league on something that they missed and you get fired for it?
Yeah.
That's a joke.
This league is crazy.
Oh, man, that's brutal. Like they had the balls to actually step out and say something like that, where no team in the league has done so far. Players will do it, like Ryan Strome the other day called out Tom Wilson's ruling a joke. But you've seen players in the past say it and then they get fined for it. Players in the NBA call out referees as well. Like if you look at last year's playoffs or the year before, Toronto's coach calling out the referees, getting fined for it. You don't see them get fired. Like I understand it is a big statement, but over the course of the year, at least this year so far, George Farrell's has been a joke with player safety in the NHL. Like fire me for saying that, like I don't know. Like I definitely do agree with whatever New York said that day, a couple days ago in their statement, but I don't agree with them being fired over it because someone has to say it. Like someone has to say
the NHL's in a tricky spot because they're trying to preserve the ability to fight in the NHL and have the physical aspects that a lot of people love.
See, the thing with
you can't do what Wilson did. You can't.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly.
Panarin without a helmet.
No. And then he's out for the season. He's out for the season,
and then
right?
You're punching Buchnevich in the head while you're on top of him.
Like I do agree to an extent where I'm sure. Well, I don't know the extent of Panarin's injuries, but it's just I think it's just all precaution because there's only how many games do they have left?
They're out of
They have 3 games left, right?
Exactly.
They have 3 games left. They don't want to risk anything, so just take him out for the year, have him good to go for next year. So maybe it could be a stunt where it's like they're saying that and then saying, "Oh, this guy caused injury that bad where he has to miss the rest of the season." It's only 3 games, but you never know. At the end of the day, I don't want to judge someone's injury not knowing what it is because it could be bad.
Exactly.
But at the same time, just like you said, like what Wilson did was just, you can't do that. Like if you want to fight, wait till the whistle, drop the gloves and go at it. But and then did you see what he was doing afterwards? Like he has his jersey off and then he's just flexing in the penalty box. I'm like, man, really?
Like there's that's rule when you're playing hockey. You don't touch people without a helmet. Like you don't mess with it because you know the extent that injuries could happen.
Then again, I do understand like people do let their emotions get the best of them. So that aspect I do understand, but still you can't cross that line that Wilson did. So that being said, I am definitely looking forward to today's game.
Yeah, you and
I
me
did
both.
see someone, there's always memes going around Twitter. So the New York Rangers officially have called up Khabib just to fight Tom Wilson tonight.
Wouldn't that be
So he's gonna
fun?
smash. He's gonna smash your boy. We'll see how that goes. But
That's
no,
incredible.
it'd be a great game. I want to see who goes after Wilson because you'll see guys going after Wilson all game long.
It's going to
So
make for an absolutely nuts sporting event.
yeah,
Well, guys, we're going to
yeah, no,
wrap
for
it up
sure.
here, I think. We're going to talk a lot of sports, a lot of fantasy, a lot of things that can help you change the way you're spending your quarantine. And we'd also love to hear from you. So again, it's Switch It Up Podcast on Instagram. Give us your take on a lot of these topics. And we'll see you again next week.